I hope you all like Vrindavan, because that's where we're going, through sound. There's in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, there's a question asked by the sages to Sutta Goswami. Sutta Goswami was very fortunate. He happened to have been in the audience when Shukadev Goswami was speaking the entire Srimad Bhagavatam to the king, Maharaj Parikshit. He heard, he understood, and he assimilated everything, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. So he was the second one to speak the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. The second time it was spoken was in Naimisharanya. And have you been to Naimisharanya? It's near Lucknow, in UP. Nice place, very, very nice place, where Krishna spoke, where Sukadeva Goswami spoke, where Sutta Goswami spoke to sages. And the sages, knowing that he heard the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, they offered their words of appreciation and praise. And then they asked him some questions. One of the questions was, now that Krishna has left, because this event takes place shortly after Krishna's departure, and they knew what that meant. The age of Dwapara Yuga was over. Kali Yuga was going to begin. Bad news, Kali Yuga, bad news. So they wanted to know, now that Krishna has left, where will religious principles take shelter? We can't have a world without religious principles having shelter. So the answer given to that question was, shortly after Krishna's departure, like the setting of the sun in the western horizon, the full moon, as brilliant as the sun, appeared on the eastern horizon in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. And people in this age, the dark age of Kali, can take light. And then it further says that by rapt attention, absorbed attention, then Krishna will appear on every page. So there's a nice painting of, there's an open Srimad Bhagavatam, and rising from the page is Radha and Krishna. But that's the experience of one who hears with rapt attention. One of the essential features of the personality of Godhead is that he has unlimited potencies. You know, in the Christian tradition, Lord God Almighty. There's songs that I learned when I was a child, going to the church and sing the songs, Lord God Almighty. But the very nature of the almightiness is literally unlimited. And these pastimes that Krishna shows have a combination of his almightiness as well as his sweetness. Now that's a potency or a power, just like almightiness is a power. Aishvarya, opulence, the mightiness of God to create and do other lift Govardhan Hill and do other mighty things. But there's a sweetness that's even greater than his greatness or than his opulences, because it attracts the hearts and the minds of everyone. And when your heart and your mind are attracted, material existence is over. I mean, you can still be in the material world, but the distraction and the turbulence of material existence is over. When your consciousness is fixed. So this is one of those pastimes that Krishna performed. According to our scriptures, Krishna appears in Vrindavan only once in every day of Brahma. And a day of Brahma is a long time. A day of Brahma consists of 1,000 cycles of the four yugas. And one of those 1,000 cycles of the four yugas is 1,832,000 years. That's 1 times 1,000, and then his night is of equal duration. And then Krishna will come again. So he came, he appeared in Vrindavan just 5,000 years ago out of that 1,832,000 years. So it's like really special. Very special. Very special. And when he was in Vrindavan, he, of course, he's the source of everything. So he cannot be born because he's the source of everything that's born. But he for pastime purposes, he appears as if he's born. That's a whole conversation in itself to understand how he who is unborn is born. And he has his childhood pastimes. Probably some of you are familiar with Ramayana. Now think about it, Ramayana, and what is described about the childhood of Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. Very little. 5-6 verses. In Balakanda. It's Balakanda, but there's very little about the Bala, the childhood activities. So if you want to hear the childhood activities of the Supreme Lord, you have to hear Krishna's childhood activities. Because even the other avatars of the Lord, what do you hear about the childhood activities of Vamana? Very little. The Shringadev, you don't hear anything. Childhood activities. So the other forms, point is, the childhood activities of Krishna and Vrindavan are very, very, very special. From the earliest stage, from he's just, not even a toddler yet, just crawling, even before that. And so all these childhood pastimes of Krishna are very wonderful. And then when he turns 6, he starts herding cows. We've been reading in the evening classes about cowherd activities, because before it was just calves, but he was having a great time with the calves. And now he's been for some time, he is around 7-8 years old. This pastime takes place after the Govardhan Leela, I believe, if I remember correctly. So he's like, 8 years old. He lifted Govardhan Hill when he was 7. So he's still quite small, but he's all powerful. He already demonstrated he's all powerful. And so on an occasion of Shivaratri, the Brijvasis decided that they wanted to go to a temple of Lord Shiva and Ambika in a place known as Ambika Vana and perform Shivaratri celebration. So everyone liked the idea. They got in their bullock carts because it was quite some distance away, and off they went. And it was the whole family affair. It was the elders and the men and their wives and the children, and whole big deal. And they went to a place. The place they went to was where there were not just the Brijvasis went, but it was a temple of Lord Shiva. So there were many, many people. You know what it's like in India, and it's Shivaratri, and you go to a temple of Lord Shiva, you're going to run into a crowd. So it's really crowded. But as you see, the main story revolves around that very large python, that really big, so big that he could swallow a person whole. It took most of the day to get to the Shiva temple. And when they got there, they did all their pujas. We'll hear some of the detail. And at the end, they gave in charity to the brahmanas, this and that. And they were so far away from Vrindavan, they decided to take rest. So the arrangement was the men over here, the ladies over there, because Nanda Maharaj was the king. He had a special place. And the boys went over some distance because they liked to play and make noise, and they didn't want to disturb the adults. The adults wanted to take rest. They were tired. So the boys were some distance away. And while they were asleep, the serpent slithered up and started swallowing, as you see in the painting, started swallowing Nanda Maharaj from his feet. The Acharyas comment, he was getting Nanda Maharaj's lotus feet mercy. So he was already purified even before the rest of the pastime took place. But there you see Krishna placing his left foot on the serpent, and the serpent then resulted in, you see that figure on the far right? That's a Vidyadhara, who was cursed to become a serpent. He became freed from all of his sins and emerged from that serpent body. So the serpent is now dead because the animating force had left. So let's hear the pastime. It's a very nice pastime. Shukadeva Goswami said, so he's narrating to the king, one day, the cowherd men, eager to take a trip to worship Lord Shiva, traveled by bullock carts to the Ambikavana forest. After arriving there, they bathed in the Saraswati and then devotedly worshipped, with various paraphernalia, the powerful Lord Pashupati and his consort, Goddess Ambika. The cowherd men gave the brahmanas gifts of cows, gold, clothing, and cooked grains mixed with honey. Then the cowherds prayed, "May the Lord be pleased with us." Now the Brijvasis, they're perfected souls. They're to be worshipped. But they don't think of themselves as perfected souls. They think of themselves like village people, Vaishyas, cowherders. And they're very respectful to the demigods and to the brahmanas. But the acharyas explain like this: their worshipable deity in their homes was Lord Narayana, and their worship of Shivaratri, of Lord Shiva, was a form of Lord Vishnu, who's known as Lord Sadashiva. Now this is a major topic. There's not easily understood Shiva Tattva. I'll describe it a little bit, but it could take, at least a half an hour to go through the whole thing. Many of you know about the process of creation. In the process of creation, Mahavishnu is the principal person. Mahavishnu. Because during cosmic annihilation, all the living entities in a susupti state, susupti means deep sleep. Not like, snoring kind of deep sleep, but like anesthesia deep sleep. You know what anesthesia is? You get an anesthesia if you're going to have an operation. They're going to cut you open. They give you some kind of sometimes through the nose or sometimes IV, and you're knocked out. Anesthesia. You've heard of that before? Okay. May you never have to have anesthesia. But if you do, it's different than being asleep without the detail. It's just, according to the Vedas, there's 3 principal states and, variations in between. Awake, asleep, and this susupti. Somebody can hack you and you don't even know what it is because it's susupti. Consciousness is very, very, very covered. So during that cosmic annihilation period, all living entities are within the body of Mahavishnu in susupti state, where time is not apparently passing, because time is involved in creation. But when it's cosmic annihilation, the time factor is withdrawn, and all there is eternal time. So anesthesia is like that. You don't know anything about passage of time. In a dream, you have some idea of passage of time, in your mind at least. But in susupti, nothing. So when it's time, when Mahavishnu considers the living entities that within my abdomen, I wish that they could be fully enjoying again in blissful spiritual consciousness. He just has that desire, icha in Sanskrit. And Rama Devi, you know who Lakshmi is? The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. Narayan and Lakshmi Narayan. Lakshmi is the goddess of fortune, the consort of Lord Narayan. And in the case of Mahavishnu, her name is Rama Devi. Rama Devi. And Rama Devi senses that icha, that desire of Mahavishnu, and she has all kinds of subpotencies to assist her in what she does. And so what she does, she takes all those living entities, all the totality of all living entities, that's a lot of living entities, by the way, and entrusts all those living entities to the glance of Mahavishnu. Because Mahavishnu is glancing off there in the distance, is the unmanifest state of Prakriti, material nature. Like a cloud. If you look look out the window, there's a cloud up there. So it's like looking at a distance. He's looking at this cloud of the material energy that's not doing anything yet. It's just a dormant, undifferentiated state of material nature. And he's glancing. So Rama Devi entrusts to his glance all those living entities along with time energy, and zoom, living entities enter into that cloud of the material energy. Along with the time energy. So within Mahavishnu, time is eternal. As the glance goes, then there's past, present, and future time. Because you need past, present, future in order to have activity. See, at the other, if you remove past, present, or future, you don't have activity. You're in a susupti state, you don't do anything. You're just lying there. They can cut you up and hack you, and they can do whatever they want. You won't even know it. So to have activity, you need time. So the time with the glance, listen carefully, the glance of Mahavishnu is called Shambhu. Because it's Shambhu that contacts material nature. Shambhu, the glance of Mahavishnu, contacts that cloud over there. And that's the beginning of creation. So this original feature of Vishnu, like Mahavishnu, as an expansion of him is what you see on the screen, Sadashiva. So that's who the Brijbasis were worshipping. Now, many people don't worship that Sadashiva. Who do they worship? They worship Lord Shiva, who resides in Mount Kailash with Parvati, or known by other names in some cases, Uma or Ambika. Different parts of India, they know that consort of Lord Shiva by different names. And they're worshipping that feature of Lord Shiva. And there's 3 other features of Lord Shiva, which I won't go into because it's a little intricate and difficult to understand. But he's a Shiva Tattva's difficult topic to nail it, to understand it, to grasp it. Very complex. But the point I wanted to make, as you see on the screen, they were worshipping Lord Vishnu in his form as Sadashiva. So they completed their worship. They gave in charity to the Brahmanas. They offered their prayers, as we heard, please be kind upon us. And they took rest. While taking rest, Nanda had 4 other brothers. Did you know that? Nanda had 4 brothers. One of them was Sunanda. His older brother was Upananda. It's a nice story, or a nice history. The history was the father of both Nanda and Upananda and the other 3 brothers, his name was Parjanya. Those of you who know a little bit Sanskrit, Parjanya means rain. It's right in Bhagavad Gita. From performance of sacrifice comes rain. With rain comes grain, etc. So Parjanya was his name, and he had 5 sons. And the first son he named Upananda. And when Upananda was to become the king, he accepted the throne, and the very same moment he passed it on to the 3rd brother named Nanda. Because he said, he's the really qualified person. Even look at my name. My name is Upananda, and he's Nanda. Upa means near. And Nanda is Nanda. So he becomes the king. So Nanda became the king. King means kind of like a landlord in Vedic culture. He was in charge. He was answerable to King Kamsa, or the king of Mathura, but in the agricultural area that he was the king of, he was king. And annually he paid taxes to the king in Mathura. That was the system. Taxes means of that which is produced, grains and milk products, etc., some portion of it went to the king. And some portion of it went to the temple, because that's one of the systems of Vedic culture. How the deity would be maintained is that deities would be the owner of some agricultural land. The agriculturists would perform agriculture and give a portion of their products to the deity. And the deity had some warehouse where they stored grain. And you've been to old temples in India, they'll show you this is the grain storage area. For once upon a time, the deity was being maintained that way. Anyway, Nanda, Sunanda, and the other greatly fortunate cowherds spent that night on the bank of the Saraswati, strictly observing their vows. They fasted, taking only water. Now, many devotees observe different kinds of fast on special days. Like common in ISKCON, for example, Krishna Janmashtami is not too far away from now. September 1st, when you first day of school, right? August 31st or September 1st? August 31st, Monday. Yeah. So many people on Janmashtami Day, they'll observe some kind of a fast. Some kind of fast. So this is Shivaratri. Many in ISKCON, we observe fast until midnight, because that's when Krishna appeared, at midnight. So they were strict. They were the complete fast except water. So now they're taking rest. During the night, a huge and extremely hungry snake appeared in that thicket where they were resting, slithering on his belly up to the sleeping Nanda Maharaj. The snake began swallowing him. In the clutches of the snake, Nanda Maharaj cried out, "Krishna, Krishna, my dear boy, the huge serpent is swallowing me. Please save me, for I'm surrendered to you." Now, could you imagine your father saying, "Help me, I'm surrendered to you"? Because Krishna is like 7, 8 years old. What father's going to say that to his son? "I'm surrendered to you." Why did he say that? Here's why he said that. When Krishna appeared in the home of Nanda, before that it was the prison house of Kamsa, but he's in the home of Nanda and Jasoda. So Nanda made an arrangement for a name-giving ceremony for Krishna and Balaram. Krishna and Balaram. And the person who did the name-giving ceremony, his name was Gargamuni. Gargamuni. The Gargamuni was very clever. He said, if I do this name-giving ceremony, then Kamsa is going to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4. That is, I'm the chief priest for the Yadu dynasty, number 1. And I'm doing a name-giving ceremony for Nanda Maharaj too. And then that means the son of Nanda Maharaj is from the Yadu dynasty. So I can't let him know that I'm doing this. So I went to a cowshed. How appropriate, right? For Gopal to have his name-giving ceremony in a cowshed. The protector of cows gets his name in the cowshed. So one of the names, in looking at his horoscope, Gargamuni said, "This son of yours will have powers like Narayana." Now, Narayana is the name of God, right? Narayana is the name of God. In Vaikuntha, Narayana is the name of God. So, your son will have powers like Narayana. He didn't say he was Narayan. He didn't say he wasn't Narayan. He said he'll have powers like Narayan. And because of those powers, he'll be able to protect all the residents of Vrindavan, so take good care of this little boy. So Nanda believed him, because Nanda had great faith. Gargamuni is a celebrated personality. He understood what he says is true. So, and again, Krishna showed powers like powers of Narayan. So he was like double convinced. So you will protect me because you have powers invested by Narayan. Please protect me. And I'm trying to get free from this serpent, but I'm helpless. So as he called out Krishna's name very loud, you can imagine it was pretty loud, he woke up everybody. And the nearest people were the elders. Now, he is the king, so he was in this little remote place. But the elders were very close by, and they came first. And they grabbed sticks and started whacking the serpent. Some of them had sticks that were still burning from the fire at night. When the coward men heard the cries of Nanda, they immediately rose up and saw that he was being swallowed. Distraught, they beat the serpent with blazing torches. But even though the firebrands were burning him, the serpent would not release Nanda Maharaj. So the elders got there first, But a little further away were the boys. So when Krishna was woken, and the other boys, he came as quickly as he could, and he saw the situation. And what did he do? Very calmly, he smiled, and he put his foot on the serpent body. The Supreme Lord Krishna, master of his devotees, came to the spot and touched the snake with his foot. Here's it much better. See in the background, that's where the temple is. Here's the same idea. Background, that's where the temple is. In the foreground, that's the serpent swallowing Nanda, was reaching out to Krishna. The elders are whacking away with burning torches. The serpent isn't paying any attention. There's Balaram over on the left-hand side. He's enjoying, because he knows what's going on. And the snake had all his sinful reactions destroyed by the touch of the Supreme Lord's divine foot. And thus, he gave up his serpent body and appeared in the form of a worshipable Vidyadhara. Now, a few things. There's going to be a conversation between the Vidyadhara and Krishna. Not just conversation, he's going to offer prayers and praise Krishna in the presence of everybody. Let's see this. There's a whole lot of people surrounding, whacking the serpent with firebrands. Krishna just placing his left foot on the serpent. There's Nanda on the left side with his crown on. And this Vidyadhara emerges from the snake body. Now he had become a snake. Krishna is going to ask him. He became a snake because he was in Vidyadhara Loka, traveling about in his airplane, and he saw some sages, and he ridiculed them because they didn't look so. He was very beautiful, and they didn't looked emaciated. So he laughed and poked fun at them. They cursed him. So he lost all of his opulence and everything and became a serpent. But it was due to the sin of offending a Brahmana and then in turn the curse of the Brahmanas. But as soon as the curse was lifted and the sin was lifted, that body of the serpent was no longer. But while he was in the body of a serpent, he was behaving like a serpent. Some of you like reading Prabhupada's books. I do. And if you look carefully, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 22, you'll find exactly what I'm just describing. When Purushak prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan kananam gunasangosya sadasadyani janma jonishu. When you get the body, the commentary says, when you get the body of a dog, you behave according to a dog's body. You wag your tail and you bark and you chew on bones. You do what dogs do. If you get the body of a demigod, you do what demigods do. If you get the body of a serpent, you do what serpents do. So he was swallowing Nanda Maharaj because he was in that consciousness, having a serpent body. But once the sin and the curse were mitigated, poof, the serpent body was no longer him because it's just a covering. So what does that mean? I mean, in practical terms for us, we're not so likely going to become a serpent by a curse or something. But whatever it is that we think we are, it's just a covering. And supposing we can get the good fortune of having that covering removed so we could discover who we really are. That would be nice. And it's not who we think we are. That's for sure. That's for sure. The spirit soul that's within the dog's body, the spirit soul that's within the serpent's body, the spirit soul that's within the king's body, the spirit soul that's in the demigod's body, is not any one of those four things. Your spirit soul that's distinct from the covering. But when you have a covering, you act according to the covering. That's part of the conditioning of material nature. So if we can become relieved of the conditioning of material nature, then we can return to who we really are. But at least there's some further detail. He's still, when the Vidyadhara is released, he's still thinking he's the Vidyadhara when he's not. Now, what's a Vidyadhara anyways? Some of you that are a little bit familiar with Vedic, the Puranas, you know of the Gandharvas and the Apsaras are spoken about a lot. Gandharvas are really good at singing. Apsaras are really good at dancing. And when there's festivals, they're singing and dancing to make it a festive occasion. So the Gandharvas do their part, the Apsaras do their part. And Vidyadharas, they do their part. What's their part? Vidya means knowledge. Vidya means knowledge. And Dhara means the holder of. Like Giri Vara Dhari, or Chakra Dhari, or Shankha Dhari. Dhari means to hold, or to lift. Balaram's name is Haladhar. He holds a plow. So Dhar is you hold, or you're the receptacle for something. And Vidya is knowledge. So Vidyadharas, they recite the Vedas. They're very opulent. It's a very pious position to become situated in Vidyadhara Loka. Beautiful, opulent features, opulent ornaments, opulent dress, effulgent, very learned, and they have mystic powers. They can travel about here and there. So that's one more thing, and I'll show you, towards the end, I'm going to show you a picture. Because pictures tell a lot. Pictures speak 1,000 words. Vedic cosmology, and I'll show you a picture that says what I'm saying right now. According to the picture of the Vedic cosmology, the structure of the universe, there's 7 upper and 7 lower planetary systems. 7 plus 7 is 14. There's 7 lower and 7 upper. And the 7 upper start with this earthly planetary region called Bhumandala. Bhumandala. And above Bhumandala is Bhuvar. And then Svarga, heaven. And there's 4 more. We know a lot about, we know something about earth, we know something about heaven. We don't know a whole lot about the other ones. But the one that's in between earth and heaven is where the Vidyadharas are. It's called Bhuvar Loka. Svarga Loka is heaven. Earthly realm is Bhumandala, and in between is Bhuvar Loka. And in the Bhuvar Loka region, this in-between space, there's lots of things. With the Gandharvas and Charnas and Siddhas and Vidyadharas, and there's some others that have their residence in that region. We'll see a chart, not a chart, a depiction of the Vedic cosmology, the structure of the universe. So that's where he was from, and that's where he's going to go after he offers his prayers. And it's significant, just take a look at the picture again. All the people that hear the Vidyadhara praising Krishna as the personality of Godhead, they're hearing a very learned person speak learned words about this little boy, 7, 8-year-old boy, that he's God. And they're hearing it. And it doesn't register because they have another kind of regard for Krishna, a sweetness regard. Lord Krishna said, "My dear sir, you appear so wonderful, glowing, with such great beauty. Who are you? And who forced you to assume this terrible body of a snake? And the Vidyadhara said, I'm a well-known Vidyadhara named Sudarshana. I was very opulent and beautiful, and I used to wander freely in all directions in my airplane. That's his airplane up there on the left. Once I saw some homely sages in the lineage of Angira Muni. Proud of my beauty, I ridiculed them, and because of my sin, they made me assume this lowly form. They cursed him. You're envious. You take birth as a serpent. And poof, he became a serpent. It was actually for my benefit that those merciful sages cursed me, since now I have been touched by the foot of the Supreme Spiritual Master of all the worlds, and have thus been relieved of all inauspiciousness. My Lord, you destroy all fear for those who, fearing this material world, take shelter of you. By the touch of your feet, I am now freed of the curse of the sages. O destroyer of distress, please let me return to my planet. So here's a little teaching from Rig Veda. There's 4 Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Veda. And in Rig Veda it says, what's the root cause of fear? Would you like to know? Root cause of fear? Dvitiya is the Sanskrit word. Absorption and duality. And absorption and duality is the result of turning away from Krishna, or turning away from the source of everything. It's just like, very simple, when you're looking at the sun, what do you see? You see light. And when you turn your back to the sun, what do you see? Shadow. It's darkness. The absence of light is darkness. So you turn you give your attention to the source of everything, that's light. You turn your back to the source of light, you see shadow. That's dvitiya. Duality. This world is a place of duality. What does duality mean? Duality means a place of opposites. Sometimes and sometimes. Sometimes it's day, sometimes it's night. Sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's dry. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. Sometimes you're honored, sometimes you're dishonored. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're distressed. It's a place of duality. Wherever there's this, there's that. And wait a while, it's going to change from that to this. It's just a place of duality that's always in a transforming state by the influence of time. That's the nature of the place. So who experiences duality? Answer, those who turn their attention away from Krishna, they experience duality. And from that duality, fear arises. That's Rig Veda. So what this Vidyadhara is, because he's a Vidyadhara. He has Vidya. He's the holder of Vidya. And he's saying that you destroy fear. For those fearing this material world, take shelter of you. So the positive is, take shelter of Krishna, you become fearless. You face the light, and you don't see darkness. There's no more duality. There's no more opposites in your life. It doesn't mean that the days and nights stop, or the heat and the cold stops, but your identifying with it stops, because you're in touch with the place that's the freedom of all fear. There's no duality. There's no identifying with it, because you're part of Krishna. That's, the true spiritual identity is being part of Krishna. So here's another painting that we saw on the first slide. There's some text that was covering it. In the back, there you see the temple of Lord Shiva. There you see Krishna stepping on the serpent. And at the bottom, you see the serpent swallowing Nanda. Then the Vidyadhara arises from his form. He continues, the Vidyadhara continues. Oh, master of mystic power. Yogeshwara, right? Yogeshwara is the name of Krishna, master of mystic power. Oh, great personality. Oh, Lord of the devotees, I surrender to you. Please command me as you will. O Supreme God, Lord of all lords of the universe. O infallible one, I was immediately freed from the Brahmana's punishment simply by seeing you. It's in sequence. First, before he had his body touched, the first thing that happened was he got the lotus feet of Nanda Maharaj. First thing. Second thing was, with his eyes, even the serpent eyes, he saw Krishna. So he became purified just by seeing Krishna. And then he says, anyone who chants your holy name, your name, purifies all who hear his chanting, as well as himself. How much more beneficial then is the touch of your lotus feet? So if you're really fortunate, you'll get the touch of Krishna's lotus feet. But almost or transcendentally the same good fortune is hearing someone chant the holy name, or you're chanting the holy name and you're hearing the holy name. If you're, as we said at the very beginning, by rapt attention, then that you'll understand. If you don't chant with rapt attention, there's still purification. But to understand the name of Krishna and Krishna are not different requires full attention. And we pay attention to that which is important to us. Isn't it? Isn't that a nice little catchy phrase? Where intention goes, attention flows. Say it again. Where intention goes, attention flows. Say it one more time. Where intention goes, attention flows. So our attention, when we're chanting commonly, is somewhere else besides the sound. Because our intention is fruitive. I mean, in the planetary structure, this middle planetary region is a place of passion. A place of passion means fruitive activity. From Bhagavad Gita, Urdvam gachanti sattvasta. Upwards is the direction of those who are situated in goodness. Madhye tishtanti rajasa. You take birth in Virginia or Maryland when you're in Rajagun, or this earthly planetary fruitive activity. Adho gachanti tamasa. Tamagun is the lower planetary regions. Passion is the middle planetary region. That goodness is the upper planetary region. How to get free from that influence of passion? Well, you can try to live a lifestyle of goodness, starting with the foods you eat and the way that you speak to others that's compassionate rather than harsh, and so forth and so on. Stay very clean, give in charity, be compassionate, try to serve others, you do mode of goodness things. But at a deeper level is consciousness, not just what you do, but the consciousness that you carry. Now, what you do does impact consciousness, but it's much stronger how consciousness impacts what you do. And the holy name in this sequence, seeing the Lord. So supposing you go to your temple room or to the temple's deity and you see the deity. That's uplifting. It's purifying. Chanting is even more so, and being touched by the Lord is even more so. So he got this great fortune. And what did he do to get this great fortune? He was sinful. He offended Brahmins. It's just Krishna's mercy. It's just Krishna's mercy. It doesn't have to be merciful. But he is. So now, next. Thus, receiving the permission of Lord Krishna, the demigod Sudarshana circumambulated him, bowed down to offer him homage, and then returned to his heavenly planet. Nanda Maharaj was thus delivered from peril. The inhabitants of Vraja were astonished to see the mighty power of Sri Krishna. Then they completed their worship of Lord Shiva and returned to Vraja, along the way respectfully describing Krishna's powerful acts. Now they also started asking themselves, who is this boy anyways? Like, he does all these amazing things. And, it kind of got resolved that, like Nanda Maharaj heard from Gargamuni, he's going to have powers like Narayan. Again, he didn't say he's Narayan. He didn't say he wasn't Narayan. He's going to have powers like Narayan. I can see it in his chart. So he'll protect all of you. So at least they understood he has some, but everybody has some power to do something. Some people can cook really well. Some people can't. Some people can sing very well. Some people can't. Some people can, do things very well. And so everyone has some vibhuti, some opulence of some kind. And those are endowments from the source of everything. Everyone has something that we're gifted, something that we can feel grateful in our heart that we received from God. And that feeling of gratitude and offering that which was given by God to you back to God, that's bhakti. Very simple. So, they were wondering, who is he? Who is he? Who is he? But they heard the Vidyadhara speak very specific words indicating he's the supreme. However, the residents of Vrindavan, even when they see opulence and even when they hear that opulence being described by, he's a Vidyadhara, he's a knowing person, he's a wise person. Vidyadhara. Their inclination or their relationship with Krishna is so much filled with sweetness they can't process it. They just see sweetness. The sweetness eclipses his opulences. That's Vrindavan. So now we're almost done. I'm going to give you a little depiction and show you where Vidyadhara Loka is. Okay? You ready for a Vedic Cosmology class 101. At the bottom of the image, this is the Garbhodak Ocean that fills half of the universe. Those circles around the outside, those 7 coverings, earth, water, fire, air, etc. Coverings kind of like a coconut, and inside a coconut is coconut water. Only this is the Garbhodak Ocean and fills up half. There you see Lord Ananta. Lord Ananta is resting on the Garbhodak Ocean, and on the hoods of Lord Ananta are the planetary systems. This one that runs horizontal here, I don't know if you can see it, it's Bhumandala. Bhumandala. See, Bhumandala, Bhumandala, Bhumandala. And in the middle, this is a very tall, giant tall mountain. It's golden mountain called Sumeru, right in the middle. So this whole place is Bhumandala. And up here is Svarga, where the higher planets are situated. Here is showing the 28 nakshatras. Those you know a little bit about astronomy or astrology. The movements of the moon through the different constellations makes the day of the, not the day of the month, but, the lunar calendar. Like, we just recently observed Ekadasi. So that's the moon passing through one of the nakshatras. Down here is the sun. Now, here's the moon. Notice in the vertical dimension, the moon is above or higher than the sun, right? It's not further away from the Earth planet, the Earth globe. It's just in the vertical dimension of the structure of the universe, it's higher. Now, over here, so this is Earth, or Bhumandala. This is the heavenly planetary region. And over here is where the Vidyadharas are. That's Bhuvar Loka. You got it? And who else is there in that region? It's not just, one place. It's Siddhas, Charanas, Gandharvas, Apsaras, etc. And there's other personalities. It's not heaven, and it's not earth. It's in between. That's where the Vidyadharas are. And just for your viewing pleasure, oh yeah, some of you like the story of Dhruva Maharaj. There's Dhruva Loka, where the laser pointer is. Can you read it? It says Dhruva Loka. Dhruva Loka is the topmost above all of the heavenly planets, or in the Swarga realm. Dhruva Loka is top. Just below Dhruva Loka, next below, is the Big Dipper, or the Saptarishis. Below. And below that is the other heavenly realms. So Dhruva Loka is right up here. And then above Dhruva Loka, Janaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and at the very, very top up here is Brahmaloka. Whoop. You lost the image. Oh, no, back. Okay. Here we go. This is planets moving. This is high tech. Now, this is above the constellations through which the moon moves. We're going to see shortly some of the other planets moving, and then we're going to see the moon moving at least from our point of observation. The moon is moving through those 28 constellations, making, the phases of the moon, the waxing and waning of the moon. And that the very bottom one that's moving left, circular motion, that's the sun. The sun moves faster than the moon, notice. Makes a rotation once a day. And the moon, it takes 28 days. Okay. That's where the Vidyadhara Loka is. And a little fun with the Vedic cosmology. Our acharyas say, Bhaktivinoda Thakur specifically says, this Krishna delivering the Vidyadhara from the serpent is, the serpent is impersonalism. And what does that mean? Different phrases. God and I are one. I am that. I am. I am is the name of God. I am infinity, in whom all arises. I met a college kid who was saying all these things. I stepped on his toe and he said, ouch. I said, how are you, God? Anyway, Tatvamasi, thou art that. So impersonalism has people captured. Here's a drawing that shows impersonalism is on the left. And Krishna was relieving the Vidyadhara from that, or it's a pastime of relieving us from that situation. Here's a final illustration. You see Shankaracharya, one of the phrases that he spoke towards the very end of his life, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam Udhamate, celebrated. Samprapte, Sanihate, Kale Nahi, Nahi Rakshati, Dukrin Karane. You fools and rascals, all your grammatical word jugglery of suffixes and prefixes and philosophical speculation will not save you at the time of death. Just worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. So there's our starting slide for those of you that came a little bit late. Now I have some couple other things I'm ready to share. I'll share them. I have an important international phone call that says when the 5 minutes to 8 bell rings, I'm going to have to excuse myself and walk out the door because I have to get back, and it's an important call. So please excuse me in advance. Now I'll ask your forgiveness once again. I find it interesting when I first heard this story, and each time I recount the story, why did he want to go back to Vidyadhara Loka? Because he knows who Krishna is. He could have said, can you take me to your spiritual abode? Why, what happened? So to be eligible to go to the spiritual abode, it's not just you make a request and that's it. There's adhikar, there's qualification. I've been using that term. To return to the spiritual world requires qualification. So, for example, think about this. When Gajendra was delivered, the crocodile was also delivered. What happened to the crocodile? He was a Gandharva, and he went back to Gandharva Loka. Right? That's what happened to the Gandharva. But Gajendra didn't, because Gajendra had, abundant qualification, spiritual qualification. He had been king in Nerdum and had worshipped the Supreme Lord abundantly. He had the adhikar. That's what he wished to attain, but the Gandharva didn't wish to attain the spiritual world because he didn't have the adhikar. He wanted to go back to Gandharva Loka. He was very grateful. You relieved me of this curse of having to become an alligator or crocodile, and now I'd like to go back. So the qualification for returning back to Godhead largely or principally or primarily is, of course, Krishna can make exceptions like he did with Putana. She didn't do a lot of sadhana. She was a bad person. But Krishna can make an exception and he can deliver. He accepted the little itty bitty service that she did as a pretending mother. He accepted the mother service that she rendered and sent her to the spiritual world. He can make exceptions to the rule like that. Very, very powerful and very merciful. But the general rule is, even though he became cleansed from contamination, he still had identification with the body as a Vidyadhara and not bhakti. You with me? Gajendra had bhakti consciousness. The crocodile didn't. The Vidyadhara didn't. And it wasn't really any service. He offered some nice prayers. That was nice. But, he really didn't have bhakti towards Krishna. Krishna relieved him anyways. And there's other examples without going through all those other examples. There's a nice verse. You can look it up later. I see there's a Bhagavatam set on your shelf. So you can look it up later. Canto 2, Chapter 7, Text 34 describes 2:7:34. There's a long list of those who were killed by Krishna who returned to the spiritual world. Now, in this case, the serpent wasn't killed. He just relieved him of sin, and thus the serpent body was no longer required. The serpent body was just a manifestation of his sin. But those killed by Krishna achieved liberation. But let's think about it. It's easy to think about it. Who was Kamsa before he was Kamsa? Kalanemi. Who was Kalanemi? He was a demon that was killed by Vishnu. That's what Narada told him. Narada told him, you know who you are? You are Kalanemi. Vishnu killed you. But when Vishnu killed him, did he go back to Godhead? He became Kamsa. In short, because of time, any contact at all with Krishna, seeing him, seeing his deity form, having the Bhagavatam on your shelf, it's described so many places. Just having, even if you don't read it, just see it and appreciate it. Wow, Bhagavatam's there. What to speak of if you open it and start reading it? It's benedictory. Or saying Krishna's name. Now you have to say Krishna's name with attention, but even if you don't say with attention, it's still purifying. What to speak of if it's with attention? Any contact with Krishna is benedictory, just like any contact with the sun is light. And then there's, when there's clouds in the sky and you can't see the sun so well, you don't get the full brilliance of the sun, but the sun is still as brilliant as whether there's clouds or not. So the bhakti process is to make that connection with Krishna once again. And you can say at least for the Vidyadhara, his spiritual life has begun. He got the lotus feet of Nanda. He saw Krishna. He heard the sound of Krishna's name because Nanda was calling out, Krishna, Krishna, please protect me. I'm surrendered to you. And he got Krishna's lotus foot upon him. So he's now freed from contamination. But his bhakti has begun and it has to mature now. So same for us. Our bhakti has begun. Now we have the opportunity, the privilege to mature our bhakti. So I'm looking at my watch and it says it's 22 minutes before the hour. I'll take a few questions and then I'm going to take your permission and 23 skidoo. See if there's any comments or questions here. We have a nice assembly of personalities. You have a lot of friends back there, huh? Yeah? Any comments or questions, anybody? Right here, look, right up front.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the lecture. My name is Samir Mason, and my question is, Krishna has a peacock feather on his head, right?
Yeah.
What does it represent?
It doesn't represent anything. He likes cows. Moo. He likes cows. They're mode of goodness personalities. And bulls too, but he liked cows. And peacocks, they're very colorful. They dance really fantastic. You ever seen peacocks dance?
No.
Oh, they're really good. They make really loud sound too when they dance. And so he enjoys the colorfulness of the peacocks. But, he also likes flower garlands, like you have in your hair, some little flowers, colorful and fragrant. So but he likes it's colorful. It's kind of like his, what do you call it? His brand. Like his flute. He likes his flute too. He has other instruments. He has a buffalo horn. But he likes his flute. And he likes peacocks. He likes peacock feathers. Sometimes the other cowherd boys, they wear peacock feathers too. Because they like Krishna.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Our hostess has something. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. You talked about Lord Sadasiva and Lord Shiva. There is a difference.
What's the difference?
Yes, Maharaj.
Well, in terms of tattva, one is Vishnu tattva, the other is Shiva tattva. It's categorically different. Vishnu tattva and Shiva tattva are categorically different. You know that.
Yes, Maharaj. So, Lord Shiva is the one who comes from the anger of Lord
Well, that's
Brahma.
how he appears, but that's not who he is. That's how he appears. You look, maybe you're just asking this question for the others in the room. I'm not sure. But in Rupa Goswami's writings, he helps us understand how these tattvas line up. Out of the 64 qualities, living entities have 50 of the 64 qualities of Krishna, but in a small degree. Lord Shiva has another 5 that living entities don't have, and a larger degree of the other 50. Vishnu has another 5 that Lord Shiva doesn't have, plus a larger degree of all the other ones. And Krishna has 4 qualities that even Vishnu doesn't have. So if you want to go through the detail, read it, rather than try to recite it, given the time factor right now. And there are qualities that Vishnu has, 5 specific ones mentioned in Nectar Devotion, that Vishnu has, that Lord Shiva doesn't. So I was making this point because it's presented in the Bhagavatam, that they were worshipping Sadashiva. That's a form of Vishnu. But it's an aspect, at the same time, Sadashiva is an aspect of Shiva. And therefore, the tattva is a little difficult to understand, put it that way. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj Ji. Thank you so much for the lecture and gracing your presence today, coming to our house. So thank you so much for that. And please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
You did mention one thing where the like saying just a little prayer to Krishna by the Gajaraj, the crocodile.
Crocodile, Gajendra.
Did not give him the that salvation. What is it? But however, the Ajamala, I was reading up the story of Ajamala, where just him crying, like he was again, like he did all the evil things throughout, but towards the end, like because his little son's name was Vishnu, he cried up, but he got that. So
that's Ajamila.
Yes, sorry. So like it's so confusing. Like, I mean, could you please explain that, like how one?
Explain what is it you want to hear? Be clear
So
and concise, please.
so like the prayers, like how does or what is the quality of praying to Krishna?
Well, the prayer is a big term, and it has a whole big range of the what's important in prayer. What's important in prayer is the intention behind it. So one could pray to God, or one could pray to a worldly person, for that matter. Can you give me some worldly stuff?
Mm.
You know, like Hiranyakashipu. He wanted immortality from Brahma and said, sorry, I can't give you immortality because I'm not immortal. Ask for something else I can give you. So prayer has everything to do with the intention behind it. And one can approach Krishna with different scales of intention, and thus prayer. And Lord Chaitanya is teaching ideal prayer. Na dhanam, na janam, etc. I don't want anything material. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. Even liberation I'm not asking for, ending the repetition of birth and death. I'm just asking for one thing. So that's his prayer. And everything about prayer is the intention behind it.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay? Anyone would like to participate in some discussion? You have something? Okay, pass it up forward. I'm going to have to give it this about 5 minutes, and then I have to go.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
I have one question about the slide you shown about the cosmology, the Vedic cosmology chart.
Okay.
So there's a Bhumandal. But, so the Earth is the only planet in the Bhumandal?
No. It's a region that has many different parts to it.
Okay. Well, why I'm asking that, because in India, whenever we do some Vedic sacrifice, so we do the sankalpa.
Yeah, I know.
And then they recite the Jambu Dvipe Vrat Khanda.
Yeah,
I'm trying to relate that how.
Yeah, but that's where you are. We're you know, we're in. To keep it simple because of time, there's 9 islands and 9 oceans, and the central island is Jambudvip. So when you say the Sankalpa, you say Jambudvipe, Bharatvarshe, Potomac. You know, did you attend that wedding, and the pujari was doing the whole thing, the whole Sankalpa. So, but Jambudvip is an island, and there's 9 varshas, and Bharatvarsha is one of those 9 varshas. Varsha means tract of land. Mm-hmm. There's 9 tracts of land that are part of Jambudvip. It's a central island. Let's see if there's some other questions. Cosmology can get really involved, and I've got 3 minutes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I was just reflecting on what happened with Vidyadhara. Like he went back and you were talking about the qualification.
Yes.
And the whole idea of like you're saying we're starting our bhakti journey and we could be going to the next level up.
Yeah.
And then we could be going down, going up, as the banyan tree example done by Krishna.
Like that, yes.
The whole qualification. So I was just reflecting on that as to, like, we still need the perfection. And I haven't seen much description on the devotional life or devotional service in the higher planets. Yes, we say Earth is the maybe it's the best place to do devotional service, but what about higher planetary systems?
Well,
above that?
in short, the business or the activity in the higher planets is overwhelmingly a mode of enjoyment. It's not like they're not pious, but their bhakti practices take the back seat, and the front seat is enjoying, unfortunately. And therefore, this middle planetary region, it's less enjoyment, less distraction of opulence, like, ooh, opulence. No. Opulence is fine if one's consciousness is very elevated. But if there's piety without that same degree of elevated consciousness, and even in our situation, supposing somebody in this life becomes wealthy or is born in a wealthy family, there may very well be a tendency to become the enjoyer of that wealth and slackening a bit in the intensity of trying to get back to Godhead, or to be in a relationship with Krishna exclusively. So those that are on the bhakti path, they're a little cautious about opulence. They don't not run away, but they're wary. This can baffle the mind and try to become the enjoyer of worldly affluence or opulence of any kind. Okay, looks like we're finished. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai.